One of the key questions we had before was the integration with software asset management to do ITAM, which is ultimately your end goal. So I always say that you cannot do software asset management without hardware asset management. How do you know what to license if you haven't got visibility of your hardware? I know there's a big argument that a lot of licensing models now are based on users, there's SaaS, assignments in portals, don't really need to know hardware, but you do for a lot of other vendors. So hardware asset management will give you that information on the number of devices regarding, the ITAM technology licenses. This is something really often overlooked. So, for example, if you've got a dedicated ITAM tool, which I know you have to inventory that and pay for that on a device basis. That's what your licensing model is. Again, yes, it's subscription, but it's still looking at the number of agents that are going out to your machines. How would you know how many agents you have if you didn't have inventory tool or you didn't have hardware asset management to help with that? Likewise with your ITSM tools, we're building the AMDB in an ITSM tool. How do we know how many licenses we need for that without knowing how many assets we've got out there? There are a lot of additional modules that you can buy as well that are based on the number of assets that you're inventorying. So without hardware asset management and discovery tools and doing that analysis and inventory work, you're not actually going to know how many licenses you're going to need for these different technologies that are actually helping ITAM. It's like, something that's very often overlooked when promoting the benefits of HAM is actually licensing HAM related tools. But there you go. Also looking at the types of hardware models for very specific hardware licensing. For example, Mac OS licenses, Windows licenses, anything Linux related, looking at the operating system and the hardware models. There are obviously some applications that you can only license on Mac or only license on Windows, etc., or are not compatible with Linux or not compatible with this, that, and the other. Hardware asset management give you that information on the hardware specification. Obviously, you've got the operating system within your SAM side of things, but HAM can pick up on this too. Just saying. Also, kind of more important from a infrastructure, a database, data center, server kind of realm, and also in the network space as well, is that it can give you that technology specification for those assets. So when you're looking at switches, routers, it's looking at connections. There's, some licensing models by connection, some licensing models by cores, processors. Within the IBM space as well, you've got the processor value unit, resource value units, etc. Really important to know the actual hardware spec that it's running on so that you can license it properly. So likewise, Oracle, SAP, IBM, etc. How are you going to get that information without HAM? I mean, you could, but HAM would make it a lot easier, I promise. Virtual servers as well. I've added this one in there. It may not necessarily be within your scope for hardware asset management or IT asset management. Fully appreciate and understand that. But again, it is an asset. A virtual instance, a virtual server in particular, would be considered as an asset for licensing purposes. Even if it's in the cloud and you're bringing your own license, or even if it's in the cloud and you're consuming a license as part of that cloud subscription. But understanding the scope, the scale of that virtual instance, that virtual server, will also greatly help the SAM team from a licensing perspective. Basically trying to share the load here, right? So that SAM can focus on the software, hardware can focus on the hardware, come together, make ITAM be best friends, and smash it on both the hardware and software side of things. HAM can also provide asset ownership information for licensing optimization. This is really useful for recharging as well and cross-charging, so that you can look at who's actually assigned the license, who's got the hardware that the license is on. Okay, we need to recharge that cost center for this license, and this license, not this one because it comes out of another budget, and this hardware. Really useful information when looking at asset ownership from a software licensing perspective for recharging, even for internal audit perspective. If you've got a list of users that are assigned to a list of devices that you want to audit, it may be that you can go to their manager, that department head, that VP, that whatever it may be, director, whatever the level is, and ask them about whether they really do need that license, how it's working, whether it's changing to a new licensing model, the costs associated, etc. So hardware asset management information can play a really key role in managing to do that as well, which is great from a selfish ham perspective. But just to be very clear, I do ITAM. I love SAM just as much as ham. So yeah, but just for the purpose of this, really focusing on the ham side of things. But I do love SAM. The software asset management, that is. Dug myself a right weird hole there. And finally, critical applications that require config items within the CMDB. Hardware asset management, like we said before, can be that link and that bridge between ITAM technologies and ITSM technologies. We are interested in both. Obviously, we've got the AMDB, which is typically in an ITSM technology, but we want data from ITAM technologies to enrich the hardware information that we have within the AMDB and within the CMDB. So we can be that bridge there as well, so that we've got all of the valuable information that we need moving forward in order to manage both our software and our hardware assets more effectively. I could do a whole session, and maybe I will, if that's something you guys want. I can do a whole session on why ham and SAM need to work together to make ITAM. So, for the benefit of the organization, but with conscious of time, and obviously this is a very high level introduction, but hopefully that gives you some understanding as to why ham and SAM can work so closely together for the benefit of ITAM and the organization.